You go in there in the morning and you tell them you want to see him, and it's like whoever's ahead of you or you're the first one if you go there early. And then you just go into this chamber with him, into his room. He calls you, and you go in there and then you plead with them.
That's the prosecutor.
Is it?
Yeah, I was there just last week.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's the justice of the peace, then they send you into the prosecutor's office, and then you make your plea.
And how did you do on it?
No, it was just a minor. I just wanted to see evidence of my registration.
Oh, okay. But that, I had to do the same thing on registration too.
Yeah, you just have to bring documentation.
But the officer...
Well, I plan on already, I'm going to administrate, I'm going to serve the prosecutor with my criminal complaint, and then I'm going to invite him to the party. I'm going to file a criminal, I'll add him to the next criminal complaint, and if he doesn't want to, if he tells me right then and there he's not going to do anything about it, well, that's great. Now I can start on my criminal complaint right away. I don't have to wait 30 days.
Yeah. You should get party cards made up.
Welcome to the party. There you go. So, and another thing is if you notice on my documents, it's a notice and demand. Okay, notice is common law. I mean, they give notices all over the place. The speed limit signs are noticed. Okay, everywhere is notice. That's common law. Okay, well, demand, sovereign's demand. Okay, it's not negotiable. I'm not asking. It's not like I'm coming up here like some servant. I want it now. One of the things is you're essentially saying that it's a mistake of law and fact due to fraud, intimidation, coercion on the part of government officials, and this process is part of correcting the record. And you're telling them to correct their records. The scriptures, it says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Never take anybody's knowledge for this. You need to understand it, and that's why I say you have to not only talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. You have to be the king. Knowledge is power. What's the alternative?
Jail.
A black screen.
That's right.
Can I add something to what you just said?
What's that?
You know, I was reading some stuff about you be the judge and the jury. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. But in there, it was stating that, you know, even when courts are held and they have juries, the jury actually has the power to override the law. If there's a law that's made there that is twisted, you know, or unjust in the sight of God, that if the jury is there and they see it and it needs to be changed and corrected, they can override that whole law completely.
And common law, okay, and this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the topic of our next discussion. And at common law, the jury calls the witnesses, the jury questions the witnesses. There's no judge in a common law court. There's the jury calls the witnesses, the jury questions the witnesses, the jury determines the law and the facts of the matter, and the jury will even pronounce sentences.
Yeah.
And the jury couldn't care less about any code, rules, or regulations. Okay, it's strictly common law. The code, rules, and regulations have nothing to do with common law. Okay, speed limits, that's not common law. None of that stuff is common law. And the common law jury can completely ignore any of that stuff.
But now what's happening is the judges that appoint the jury, they actually ask so many questions now that they're trying to pre-rule up front of how that jury member is going to look at this case. So if it's not going to go in their favor, they'll oust that potential jury or juror.
Well, it's not a common law court.
Yeah,
you know, that's a martial law court.
Yeah.
And so, and actually in those courts, if the jury doesn't follow the instructions of the judge, then the judge can put them in jail. I mean, all sorts
exactly.
of things.
Exactly.
So that's not a common law court. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Is the ultimate solution is to form our own common law courts and grand juries and start bringing indictments.
Yeah.
And just a little background about me and why I know about this stuff, because I was the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the Republic of Texas for about 1.5 years. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Republic of Texas, but Texas, everybody knows Texas was a republic, right?
Yeah.
Well, in order for any sovereign nation to become part of another sovereign nation, there has to be a treaty of annexation that's done. Essentially, both nations agree to become one, right? And so the Republic of Texas actually did do a treaty of annexation, and it was sent to the U.S. Senate for approval and adoption. They didn't approve it. They shelved it. All they did was a House Joint Resolution, is what they did. Well, that's not approval and adoption, okay? So what happened is the Republic of Texas still exists today, and there's even court cases that talk about it. And so what a group of people did is you have this, and the same thing is going on here, okay? You gotta understand, it's the Matrix. Anybody watch the movie The Matrix?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Everything is an illusion, okay? The same thing is going on here, okay? You have a de facto corporation. De facto means illegitimate, okay? Bunch of criminals, okay? That are running the government. Even if you look in the criminal code, it talks about it, about the de facto power in Canada, okay? Anyways, you have a de facto corporation that's running things here. The only reason they're getting away with it is because we, the people, are asleep at the wheel. All we have to do is start forming our own de jure government to operate it. That's all we have to do is operate it. It's here, we just have to operate it. And that's what happened in Texas. A bunch of people got together and they said they brought the Republic of Texas out of abeyance, okay? Abeyance means dormancy. And they formed a provisional government of the Republic of Texas. And then after a few years, they did the regular government. And they hold elections, there's a president. I have a diplomatic position with the Republic of Texas. And you'll see in a minute. And there are resources available to you to help establish your own de jure government. Okay, your own lawful de jure government. And I'll help you. The people in the Republic of Texas will help you. You know there's treaties between the Republic of Texas and England?
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
So those treaties are still in force.
British England States.
So you need representatives for every county, right?
Well, if you want to have, technically yes, okay? But your government, your lawful de jure government starts in the county, okay? So what you really need to do is, it's got to start somewhere, right? So you can, you know, I mean, is there we the people in the neighboring county? There might not be, okay? So you gotta just start it somewhere, okay? Now Edmonton, for example, right now Edmonton is a municipality or municipal district, right?
Yeah, but it's like a county.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, is that the county of Edmonton's still here, okay? The municipal district is a corporation. It's a municipal corporation, okay? So consider it, the way you gotta look at it in Texas, okay? What they did was, originally in Texas, what happened is in 1845, Texas joined the Union, or supposedly joined the Union, right? And so when it was 1832 or something like that, when the Alamo happened, and so there's a period of about 8 years when the Republic of Texas existed. And so in 1845, Texas joined the Union. There was like, I don't know, 20 counties or something like that, right? Well, now in Texas, there's 100 some odd counties, and they're all over the place. So what they do is those 100 counties, the Republic of Texas doesn't recognize them, okay? You do the same thing. Somebody's got to go into history and see what it was like in Alberta. You know, when you got to figure out when the de facto took over, and you got to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, this was when it was de jure, and this is when it became de facto, and so then these counties that were here when it was de jure are all that's here now, as far as the de jure.
Basically, from what we can tell, is before the incorporation of Alberta in 1905, the Northwest Territories ran this, which was de facto.
Right.
And before that, it was nothing.
It was Indian territory.
No de jure.
It was Indian territory.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah, it's de facto.
but in any territory, you don't want to be in a territory. You want to be de jure.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, you got to think about that and sit down, put your heads together, and figure out how you're going to do it. Okay. Anyways, all you really need is a county. okay? The county is where your government sits. And all the rest of it's corporations, okay? And so really all you need to do is get together and elect a county judge. Because in order to form a grand jury and a common law jury, you need a judge to swear in the jurors, okay? Anyways, we'll get into that. I have the Office of the Charge d'Affaires with the Republic of Texas. That's a copy of my commission. Signed by the current president and the Secretary of State of the Republic of Texas. Canada is a municipal corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia. Canada is in bankruptcy. Income tax checks are made out to the Receiver General for Canada. That's a receiver in bankruptcy. Right there is your proof. Get a load of this. Indiana and Company. Engaged in providing peace, justice, security, opportunity, health, highways, education, conservation, regulation. And then it goes right up here. It says every Indiana citizen to a full share in the capital stock of Indiana and Company. Right? Don't you see what's going on?
3,460 stockholders.
It's the same thing that's going on here. That's what they did. And then if you think about it, what happened, see this is 1936, 1937, right? So what happened, that's why I say, all this so-called financial crisis is just a charade. It's all orchestrated to force these municipal corporations into bankruptcy, because what happens when any corporation goes into bankruptcy? The stock becomes worthless, the creditors now become the stockholders. So now instead of being owned and operated by the people, it's owned and operated by a bunch of international criminals.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that's going on here.
Canada Inc.
This is actually taken from the Solicitor General and Public Security Annual Report. Did you know there's such a thing? I downloaded it off their website. 2008, 2009. Notice here, it says Correctional Services Division expenditures of $19.7 million. That included $17.5 million for salary settlements, as well as $2.2 million increase in supplies and services costs and new programs. Well, I mean, think about that. Correctional Services Division, don't they have a bunch of jails?
Yeah, I think
So who's paying for all those jails?
And they're making more.
Huh? Yeah, no doubt. Who's paying for them all? It's not coming from the public funds. Who's paying for it? The prisoners.
Yeah, we're the prisoners.
Well, the prisoners know the prisoners in the jails. That's what they do with those bonds.
That's right.
They go and do a bid bond or performance bond and a payment bond, and these prisoners are in jail and paying for their own jail.
That's because we're the money.
That's true.
What was that report again? Public security?
What?
Annual report.
This is the Solicitor General and Public Security Annual Report. It's on the Solicitor General's website. 2008, 2009. Yes.
Is it still there?
I just downloaded it a couple days ago.
I looked it over, and I find those numbers absolutely unbelievable. I think they're way, 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 way too low.
No doubt. I mean, well, yeah. Who knows? I think that that there's a lot of stuff that's shenanigans that's going on.
Oh, big time. I think the whole thing is
They make
funny.
$1 trillion a year at least on traffic tickets.
But they're auditing themselves.
Oh yeah, of course.
So,
So what we need to do is you know, if we could wake up enough people here, we could get some people going down there maybe that are bean counters and say, hey, you know, start asking some questions and saying what's going on with this and what's going on with that. And we want some accountability and stuff, you know. I'll bet you hold their feet to the fire, you know, yes.
And find out where their bank deposit, where they're depositing all their revenue.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of questions that need to be asked, that's for sure. And this is what we already talked about. When a corporation, a municipal corporation goes into bankruptcy, it's effectively a coup d'etat.
d'etat.
right? It's a coup.
Can you put it back 1 minute back on that one?
Some people don't know what a coup d'etat is.
It's a coup. It's
Yeah.
another word.
Latin for?
Yeah, what's
That's
the Latin
French.
for? French for.
It's overthrowing the government.
It's military takeover.
Coup de grace, the cut of grace, in other words.
Exactly.
Off with your heads.
Because what happens is the international bankers operate exclusively under martial law, so
France.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's not effectively, it is a coup d'etat then. I never realized it was a military takeover.
Yeah, it's always military. It's always done by the generals.
Anyways, who are the creditors for Canada?
Oh, really?
1974.
Yeah. When we bought into the IMF, G8,
You mean they bought it to us?
we applied.
Primary responsibles of the officer of any corporation as to the owners of the corporation. All these people running around in military uniforms that call themselves police are working for Canada. They're foreign, and they're just nothing but a bunch of thieves and criminals. The creditors of these bankrupt corporations or the international bankers operate exclusively under private international law, martial law. It's another word for martial law. Admiralty maritime law, civil law, Canada law. All words with the same thing. The Magna Carta was signed by the tyrant King John in 1215. In 1213, King John swore allegiance to the Vatican.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oath of fealty.
Yeah, concessions to the Pope.
That's why we pay taxes.
That's, I've seen Israeli court cases that say that Admiralty maritime law goes back to the Babylonian Empire.
Yeah.
Way back.
Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force. It is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. All governments actually operate under martial law. Every government on the planet is under martial law. And that's why it's the responsible of we the people to keep our government under control.
Our government?
Can be,
government.
if we keep it under control. Right now, it's basically doing what it wants, so I don't know whose it is.
Banks.
Banksters.
It's a corporate government.
There are three kinds of martial law. There's full martial law, there's martial law proper, and there's martial law rule. And this is taken from a document that's available on Google Documents that you can take a look at if you want. It's about a 155-page document. It's written by a judge, former judge, I guess, of the U.S. or the Utah Supreme Court by the name of A.H. Ellett. It's called the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment, and it's part of a court case called Dyett versus Turner. And it's very interesting because he goes through and explains what's happening. The importance for Canada, for us, is number one, Canada is a municipal corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia, number one. And number two is that they're doing the same stuff here. It's all martial law. And once you understand how it works and what's going on, then you can easily defeat it. Yes?
Does the Republic of Texas have militia forces?
There are some, but there's people, like when I was speaker, there was some guys that wanted to really get, but, quite frankly, and I told them, I said, we can't be doing that, okay? There's no way that we can outgun them. At some point, yes, we will want to do something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But at this point, if they want to squash us like a bug, they can squash us like a bug, It's what do the scriptures tell us, I think Christ said you got to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove, right? Anyways.
Those guys working on those war college projects, like RAP.
Right?
They scrapped that. They're doing the militias, but they're trying to get the current standing federal armies to fill the state militia positions.
Well, They can't do that with the militias. What they're doing is they've effectively taken over the National Guard in the States anyways.
Yeah, I know that.
Because the president can order the National Guard to active duty and all the rest of it. But the militias, they already know that they have no authority over the militias. The militias is the people. That's too ingrained in the Constitution, and the Second Amendment even talks about it. But what they try and do is like the Michigan militia. Every once in a while, they try and infiltrate them and try and catch them plotting. You know, they send out agent provocateurs. They even did it at the recent G7 meetings in Montreal or Toronto. There's even a thing on YouTube about how they went and sent these, and it's on YouTube. These agent provocateurs are sitting there trying to foment all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they do that all the time. You know, and that's why I always tell them that these guys that were doing that in Texas, I says not only no, but hell no, if you'll excuse my French. We're not going to be doing stuff like that. We have to be, if we're going to take over, this is what I tell them, is we're going to take over control of the government, there's no doubt about it. But we're going to do it in such a way that they will want to do it too.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And you have to just, it has
Educate the people.
huh?
You have to educate the people.
Educate the people, and you have to do it within the law. It's got to be done within the law. If we try it with the force of arms, it's not going to work because they got more arms, they got unlimited money, and because they can just print it. And so you can't. It's not going to work doing it that way. We have to do it within the law. The law is on our side, and the law is on our side here. And as I show you what we're talking about, I think you'll come to understand how the law is on our side. Because the courts will, even if this is done properly, the courts will rule in our favor. The courts will support it. If it's done properly. It's got to be done properly. And that's why you need to put your heads together, and you've got to look into history and
Bring it to light.
make a plan of attack, you know. But if it's done properly, the courts will uphold it. Even their courts, their de facto courts will uphold it. Full martial law. This is the first kind of martial law. So a declaration of martial law is issued. Troops are put in the streets. It's used only during wartime. It's used in a foreign country or when our country is invaded by a foreign power or to put down an armed rebellion. So you won't see full martial law here very much. Might. Hopefully not. Martial law proper. Martial law proper is the law of the armed forces. It's when a captain tells a private to do something. Okay, that's martial law. Enforced by court martials. That's what's going on. That's what these traffic courts, that's a court martial. That's what it is. It's all private law. Martial law rule. Law of necessity and emergency. Allows the domestic use of martial law powers used during time of peace. It's the most subtle one, and this is what's happening. Martial law rule.
Is that used like in natural disasters and such?
No, that would be more like full martial law.
Law of necessity and emergency.
That's
Right.
what happened when Larry had the cops come in and take the children. That would be an example. Like if social services comes and takes your kids, would that be this kind of law?
Yeah, that's martial law. That's martial law rule. Martial law rule is everywhere right now. Okay, that's what you're looking at out here. Okay, martial law rule. But it doesn't have to be